Hi, I'm Steve Becker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Westfield, New Jersey. I've been in private practice for about 25 years. I have had a clinical interest and specialty in narcissistic and psychopathic, sociopathic personality. I've blogged prolifically on the subject. I've written a book called The Inner World of the Psychopath, a comprehensive, definitive primer on the psychopathic personality. And I made a number of YouTube videos and intend to make more of them, very unscripted, very spontaneous. They are meant to elaborate, to explain who psychopaths are, what they are, what differentiates them from others. I make no distinction between psychopathic personality and sociopathic personality. I think where narcissism and psychopathy or psychopathic personality diverge, if they do, some feel that psychopathy is really the sort of apex, the highest expression of narcissism, and that's where we get the term malignant narcissism, which is very synonymous with psychopath, sociopath, and I'll be using the term psychopath. But I think that one of the elements of psychopathic territory is shamelessness, which we see quite evident and exhibited at remarkable levels by our president. In this video, as a matter of fact, I would like to address some thoughts on President Trump. It's the second video in which I'd like to say some things about him, share my views. I've written about Trump and expressed my thoughts about Trump for about 1.5 years now. I haven't been shy in sharing what I think diagnostically explains him. And as a matter of fact, I've called out, and I continue to call out, the mental health clinical world, or particularly the organizational bodies representing the clinical world, the APA, the NASW, for their generally strong disinclination to call Trump what he really is. They have invoked a code of ethics that frowns upon the diagnosing of public figures, which is generally a wise policy to follow. But I think that exceptions to many codes need to be made, and I think in this case it does. There have been some clinicians out there who've called Trump out, but by and large, most of the calling out has referred to Trump's narcissistic traits. Very few clinicians have been willing to come out, no less these organizations, have been willing to come out and explain what these traits really mean, the disorder that explains them. Trump, in my view, is an extraordinarily narcissistic personality. Call him a malignant narcissist, that's applicable. I believe he has highly psychopathic tendencies. I think that America elected a highly psychopathic man on November 8th. Trump's got all the traits that are well documented to be associated with psychopathic personality: manipulativeness, glibness, remorselessness, impulsivity, callousness, grandiosity, pathological lying, which he really, has a patent on, stimulation seeking in states of boredom, particularly antisocial, provocative forms of stimulation seeking, which are really evident in his Twitter history. And Trump's mentality is highly psychopathic or malignantly narcissistic. As I said, I think that in narcissism, you often will see underlying or driving facets of narcissism, elements of shame, mismanaged shame, whereas I think as you move up the hierarchical ladder into areas of psychopathy or psychopathic personality, you begin to see more and more shamelessness versus evidence of shame. Trump is clearly, as I said, an absolutely spectacularly shameless human being. The mentality is a rule-breaking mentality, a transgressive mentality, a contempt for rules, a contempt for limits, an envelope pushing, getting over on others and getting over on systems mentality. It's characterized by a tremendous contempt for vulnerability and a tendency to view vulnerability as weak. And in the cases of psychopathic personalities, there will be a real risk and a tendency to exploit vulnerability. Missing empathy has been characterized as a trait of psychopathy. I'd also add that missing compassion, lacking compassion, again, for vulnerable people is very characteristic of psychopathy or the psychopathic personality. What's important to note is that combinations of these traits at high levels really begin to differentiate people. It's not enough that to say that somebody has manipulativeness in their personality or this trait or that trait. We're talking about possessing many, if not all of these traits at really troubling levels that begins to differentiate more psychopathic people and malignantly narcissistic people from less afflicted with these mentalities. Trump possesses all of these traits and the mentality at the very highest levels. I want to make just a couple other points that may seem a little bit random, but that relate to what I'm saying. Psychopaths are highly disloyal people. There's very little deep down loyalty, and one thing that I believe has been underexposed and underexplained has been Trump's pattern and brazen capacity to disown positions, disown statements that no longer prove convenient to his present agenda. He invokes a sort of amnesia even for positions and statements that he's made, a denial that he's made them. And this is very similar. This is a very psychopathic pattern where when someone is no longer convenient to your purpose, just cut bait without remorse and with no shame. Trump has been able to lie at epically pathological levels for similar reasons. He's been even when confronted with his lying, he has persisted in denials, obfuscations, prevarications. This is very psychopathic. There's an absolute contempt for the truth. Psychopaths are very noted for this kind of distinctive contempt for truth, and hence are able, again, shamelessly and unconscionably, to be able to face exposure and evidence of their untruths and retain either equanimity or, in some cases, aggressive, defiant kinds of responses, which leads to the issue of Trump's unaccountable personality. This is a man who has inarguably proven to be unwilling to be held to account and incapable of being held to account. Someone whose sense of entitlement is so malignantly enormous that he believes that he should really be spared, for example, the press's responsibility to hold him and all politicians to account. And like many, if not most psychopaths, when challenged to account, he strikes out. He becomes defiant, he becomes aggressive, infantile, belligerent, vindictive, slanderous, accusatory, everything that abdicates responsibility for his behaviors, his attitudes. And this is quite troubling, you know, for many people. My issue has been that, as I say, as a clinician, I've found myself quite troubled that the clinical world has failed to step up and call this directly what it really is. There should no longer be a kind of incredulity evoked by Trump. Psychopaths and psychopathic, malignantly narcissistic personalities routinely evoke reactions of incredulity until we recognize who they are and realize that this is who they are. They in their antisocial audacity, they perpetrate behaviors and attitudes that absolutely leave others jaws dropped. We've seen a volume of this from Trump that is dangerously put us at risk of becoming desensitized for now many months to these psychopathic displays. I think much of the population has become almost inured to Trump's psychopathic exhibitions and malignantly narcissistic exhibitions. So these are some thoughts that I have. I understand that politically this subject is controversial and provokes a lot of strong reactions, but from my perspective, this has never been a political issue. This is an unprecedented circumstance in which our president is as flagrant and self-flaunting a narcissist and even psychopathic as we've probably ever seen. I don't think that there is any question about this, and I feel that the clinical world has quite honestly betrayed the public in failing to explain Trump. This is what explains Trump. His assault on the press, just to finish this video up, his assault on the press is positioning the press and the media as conspiratorially against him, referring to the mainstream press now as purveyors of fake news, which is really a projection of Trump and his administration's own purveying of fake news. It's really alarming, and it's highly psychopathic, and coming from a president to have the audacity and the level of contempt to position himself as at war with the press and to convey that kind of contempt for the press, a bedrock of our democracy, is absolutely alarming. So, as a clinician, I'm not afraid to state my view that Trump is as malignant a narcissist as you can find and highly psychopathic. I will look forward to making another video soon, and I hope this was informative. Thanks.